The intensity of the times, the urgency of the times is forcing all of us to do things in new and different ways. And, I'm talking to an audience of innovators and folks who understand the entrepreneurial spirit and understand what it means, to be challenged, where you're forced, and sometimes you fail, and you're forced to innovate and leapfrog ahead. And, that's how I view this moment right now for our state and the opportunity that we have.
Welcome to Unnatural Selection, a show about competition, innovation, and the strategies shaping tomorrow's frontiers. I'm Nick Encina. Each week, we speak with pioneers shaping the future.
In episode 33 of Unnatural Selection, we sit down with Governor Maura Healey of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to explore how states can lead the way in innovation when national leadership falters. The conversation covers innovation in policy and economics as tools to propel Massachusetts further forward as a global leader in innovation. Governor Healey reflects on the power of government partnerships with industry, academia, and communities, as well as the federal headwinds created by deliberate attacks on institutions of research and higher learning. She speaks about competition with other states and with other nations, and the unique role Massachusetts plays not only as a modern pillar of innovation, but as the birthplace of American democracy, carrying a sense of history, belonging, and leadership in a moment when it is needed most. She also discusses how her administration is stepping in to fill the gaps left by federal retrenchment, from weakened public health systems to declining research investment, and how Massachusetts is investing boldly in education, infrastructure, and new approaches to stay competitive and evolve. In a time of challenge, Governor Healey makes the case that states must innovate, and Massachusetts intends to lead. Maura Healey is the 73rd governor of Massachusetts. In 2022, she became the first woman elected governor in state history and the first openly lesbian governor elected in the country. As governor, she is focused on making Massachusetts a global leader in innovation, especially in life sciences, healthcare, and R&D, while also making the state more affordable and competitive. She was previously the Massachusetts Attorney General, a civil rights lawyer, and a litigation partner, and she captained her basketball team at Harvard and played professionally in Europe. Let's go.
Governor, welcome to Unnatural Selection.
Hey, it's great to be with you, Nick.
Same here. I think we could do a whole episode on your experience in playing professional basketball, but we'll keep it professional for now.
Okay, all right. For the record, I was a point guard.
Okay, I love it. My
I'm short.
wife actually plays basketball as well, so I'm sure she's going to have plenty of questions.
All right.
I always start with the same signature question, just because it's good with such a diverse audience to level set and give people your perspective on what drives your work and your mission. So, could you please let us know, Governor, what need or impact drives your work?
For me, it's really about how do I make things work from this position as governor to sorry. Let me just answer that. Um,
Do you want me to start over?
yeah, you could just ask me that again.
Okay.
Great.
So, Governor, it's so great to have you here. I always start with the same signature question just to level set. With such a diverse audience, it's great to hear in your words what mission drives what you do. So, could you please let us know what need or impact drives your work?
Yeah. It's really about delivering for people and delivering for people in Massachusetts. And, I have to say, I am a really unlikely politician. Growing up, I never thought I'd run for office or be in politics. I was a lawyer, I was a business lawyer. Before that, I had a professional basketball career. But I ended up going to work later on in the Attorney General's office and, ultimately served there and became governor. And I think what drives me in public service is something that does go back to who I was as a basketball player. It's about teamwork. And for me, it's about, how do you work as a team in partnership with those in government, with business, with industry, with the NGO space to drive us forward in this crazily competitive and ever changing and challenging world. And I love the opportunity to do that in Massachusetts, where we have such an incredible array of industries and businesses and uh, partners, teammates in this effort. I keep my eye focused on things that everyday residents, as well as businesses need, right? I mean, making life more affordable for businesses, that's about cutting taxes. We were the first to do that as a state, as a governor, I should say. I'm the first governor to cut taxes in over 20 years here in Massachusetts.
Wow.
How do I build more homes, right? How do I bring more homes online to lower housing costs, to lower, and need to lower healthcare costs and energy costs. But how do we create, working together, the kind of environment where individuals and families can succeed, and also businesses can succeed and businesses can grow? I, really view a big part of my responsibility is making Massachusetts the most attractive place, not just in the country, Nick, but in the world, for people to come and study and research and become entrepreneurs and start businesses, to be the place where people want to both start families and grow families and also grow old, right? So, that's the mentality that I have as governor.
I love it. And I can say just from personal experience living here, I'm right in Boston as well. We feel it. I think that that air of innovation and competition and building for the future is something that we do feel in this state. And we thank you for that work.
Well,
And
thank
it's
you. Thank you, but also you speak of innovation. There's a history there that we build on, right? And there's a legacy that I, both draw energy from and also want to drive forward every day.
That's exactly right. And that's why I'm so excited to have you here because when people think about government, they don't often think in terms of innovation and competition. But there's a lot to it, right? I mean, whether you're talking about stimulating economic growth or policy and so on, and much of your leadership involves navigating competition, whether it's with other states for business, talent, investments, or globally, as Massachusetts competes in areas like biotech, clean energy, education. Where do you see the Commonwealth's competitive edge today?
Yeah. I think I think that there's a lot we have in our state in terms of assets, and for me, it's about how to harness all of that. Look, as we sit here today, we're the number one state in the country for education, for innovation, for healthcare. We've been ranked the best state to have a baby in, to raise a family. We have other things going for us, Nick, as well. We have the safest drinking water, great quality of life here, great sports teams here. We're an incredibly safe state. I think we're also a very steady state, and in a time of uncertainty where you know, uh, a lot of people just don't know what is coming. Businesses don't know what's coming. Investors don't know what's coming. Massachusetts is a place, under my leadership, you can count on us. There's a certainty, there's a steadiness here, right? And I think that's really important. I view my job as helping to set the conditions for growth, for job growth, for economic growth, for economic mobility and opportunity for everybody in the state, right? Those are the things that drive me. And when I think about Massachusetts, I'm the 73rd governor. We've been around for a while here in Massachusetts. In fact, we started celebrating America 250 a year early because, of course, Massachusetts, in one of the early innovations, innovated American democracy, right? The shots rang out in Lexington and Concord, and really gave birth to this great country of ours and representative democracy. And I think also from the beginning, Nick, Massachusetts has been and has had to be about innovation through decades, through generations. We were making steel here back in the 1640s, right? Not Pittsburgh, Massachusetts, and we take pride in that. When you think about the inventions that come out of Massachusetts, everything from the telephone to the computer to mRNA. This is a place that is always about innovation. And in my view, pound for pound, there is no place, not just in the country, but in the globe, where you have an ecosystem of science, research, academic teaching hospitals, research institutions, colleges and universities, which are in abundance here. And so, these things together create the groundwork for things like life sciences, and that's why Massachusetts is the global hub, in my view, because of that ecosystem, and create the opportunities for other industries and sectors to thrive. I am leaning big time right now into applied AI. I am leaning into climate technology as another area, as well as doubling down on the commitment to life sciences. But this is part of the special sauce, I'd say, of Massachusetts. I'm glad everybody's here. And I want to encourage as many people to come to Massachusetts, do business in Massachusetts. I'd really love if they would stay and expand in Massachusetts. Um, but just know that this is a place that really values innovation, science, research. We have from the beginning, I mean, not for nothing. We were home to the first school in the country. We're home to the first library in the country, right? First university in the country. So, this is just part of our DNA, who we are as a state.
Yeah, and I think we all do identify as that. My children go to the Elliott School, which is one of the earliest ones as well, right? So I think that history permeates almost everything that we do. Sometimes we take it for granted because it's so easy to do so when you're living in it, but it really is a very rich state with everything that you said. And I've been a part of biotech and technology and life sciences and healthcare, and you feel that vibrant culture and that environment everywhere you go as these different sectors intersect from academia to government to for profits and VCs. We have all of that here, and it definitely shows. But economic growth often depends more than technological innovation. It often depends on policy innovation. So, what policies are you most focused on that you believe will stimulate growth and position Massachusetts as a leader in the next decade?
Yeah, well, I think most importantly, it's education. I mean, we have gone big time. I bragged earlier, we're number one in education. But let me tell you what that means and why it's important and why I think it is the place for growth now and for future growth. There's no more talented workforce in the United States than in Massachusetts. And that happens because we make investments in education, big time investments in early education and childcare, in K to 12 education. I have really increased the number of vocational seats in high school and career technical training programs in high school where students are being trained up and educated in the skills that really suit them for today's economy and the needs of our employers here. And particularly the needs of the companies that are looking for robotics and advanced manufacturing and biotechnology and applied AI and the like, right? So making sure that our education, our public education, where we make uh, taxpayer investments, really is aligned with what today's business model is and what employers are looking for. I also did things like make community college cost free. You can go to community college in Massachusetts at no cost. We have reduced the rate of tuition for our state colleges and universities, making them more affordable so that more people have opportunity at education. And I think that's really important to setting us up for success, those kinds of investments. And I think the results, are showing themselves right now in our rankings. I also think things like housing and transit really matter, right? People have got to be able to afford to live in a wonderful place like Massachusetts. And that's why I put $4 billion into building more homes all across Massachusetts. I just did um, uh, an innovative like regulatory overhaul to make it possible to bring housing online more quickly in our state. Public transit, I've invested a lot of money in public transportation for roads and bridges and our subway and our commuter rail system for our ferry system so that people can better get around. Those are some of the things that I think are pretty basic to the success and well-being of individuals in the great Bay State here, but also I think really important predicates for successful economic expansion for companies and employers here as well.
Yeah, I often interview CEOs and executives in companies that have been around for 100, 150 years. And it's hard innovating in those places because you have legacy technology, you have cultures that adhere to old practices, and many other things. I couldn't imagine the challenges of innovating in a state that's been around for as long as Massachusetts. You mentioned infrastructure and you mentioned public transportation and roads. You have a lot of legacy infrastructure you have to work with to try to innovate on top of that.
Yeah, but we're doing it, and the first thing I did, I put an engineer in charge of transportation, right? Somebody who also, in addition to being a transportation expert, knows how stuff is built and knows what we need to do. And, he just in 2.5 years has really shaved time off of projects. And as a result, we've seen major improvements and more people are using public transit. And that's another reason why we're able to build more housing because people want to live near a public transit hub, it turns out. And that's what we're building out here in Massachusetts. Homes next to public transit hubs where people can get into Boston, can get into Cambridge, and can get elsewhere around the state. Worcester, Massachusetts is in the top 20 of innovative cities in the United States. And
Hmm.
that's just, to say that it's not just Boston and Cambridge, it's really our whole state, and so we're gonna continue to make investments in things like transportation. I think at the end of the day, don't you wanna live in a place where, you have, affordable housing, right? That'll work for your family, that, your kids have access to great education, that you have access to great employment, your community, your neighborhood is safe. You don't have to worry about that. You have clean air and clean water, and you've got entertainment in the form of, the things that we have access to here in Massachusetts, great cultural institutions and museums and attractions and concert halls and sports teams and wonderful places to hike or, you know, go to the ocean, right? These are all things that, I think a lot of people are looking for in a quality of life. And, I'm about talent acquisition, talent attraction. And that's why, my job is focused on how do I improve quality of life. When I do that, and focus on things like housing, transportation, I know that that's key to economic growth for our state.
One of your flagship efforts is the Drive Initiative,
Mhm.
focused on innovation, economic growth, and competitiveness. Can you walk us through what it is, why it matters, and how you see it shaping the Commonwealth's future?
Yeah. Well, look, it's been a really challenging year. To see the cuts that we've seen to NIH, to NSF, to NOAA, to see the attacks on colleges and universities and cuts to funding there. It's bad. I think it's really bad for American competitiveness. I think it's bad because, I see the impacts. I see other countries, whether countries from Europe or the Middle East, Canada, China, coming to Massachusetts, coming to America, recruiting talented scientists, researchers, entrepreneurs away. That's bad. And so, in the face of what I think are really misguided decisions by the Trump administration to cut funding, we've said, no, no, we're not going to let that happen here in Massachusetts. We're going to double down on investments in science and research. And that's what Drive is. It's a proposal, $400 million to science and research in Massachusetts. We call it Drive Discovery Research Innovation for a Vibrant Economy, because we know that not only is it the case that 1 in 10 research jobs in the entire United States are in Massachusetts, like that's a really important thing for us to hang on to. I also know as governor that for every dollar put into research, you're doubling that, more than doubling that in terms of return to our own state GDP, right? So, my view was let's put money there. It'll help keep people here, our talented trainees and postdocs and scientists, and keep them from leaving to other countries. And also, I think we have an opportunity to leverage that funding with some commitments from VCs, from private companies, from foundations who are interested in science, innovation, and research, and really do something special. But science research, that's an economic catalyst, an economic engine for our state, and I think the success has been proven. That's why we're the global hub for life sciences, and I think that we have a chance to really shine as a state. I feel it every day. I don't view my job as competing against other states alone. We're Massachusetts. We're in competition with other countries, right? And that's kind of the attitude and the vibe that I bring. And I'm really excited about this opportunity. Something we've never done before in this way to have this kind of initiative where we can have a public and a private engagement and investment around innovation. And it's exciting.
It's very exciting. So to close out, if we zoom out, and I think you've partially answered this question already, but just to kind of finish on this note, from your vantage point as governor, where do you see the role of states, and obviously Massachusetts in particular, in shaping the future of innovation in society and in policy and governmental work, but also you mentioned the partnership between government and industry and academia, and you just feel that partnership and collaboration so clearly here in Massachusetts. How do you think about that in terms of how you shape the future of this state and this country, as you mentioned?
Well, I think as a state, here's what we need to do. We need to make the investments in innovation. We need to continue to fund education and create that pipeline of a talented workforce that allows us to continue to innovate and allows our companies to innovate. We also need to embrace opportunities like the one I talk about with Drive, like lean into state, not only investing in education, but also investing in science and research, knowing that's important, both with respect to things like cures and treatments that will benefit the world, but also really important for our economy, because we know that, by the way, those labs that those scientists and researchers are going to be going to be sitting in, they're built by construction workers. There are architects and real estate folks involved. And by the way, when they're out of the lab, those folks are down buying coffee and buying meals and renting apartments and all that, right? Like you generate a bunch of jobs from that investment. So investments in education, investments in science and research, that's something that the state needs to do. We're unique. We have something called the Massachusetts Life Science Center, which is a quasi public private, entity that helps fund early founders through to larger corporations. We also have the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, which performs a similar function, and super excited about these things. We have Mass Ventures, which is also a quasi public entity that really focuses on younger entrepreneurs. And you know, this is what we need to continue to lean into as a state. I recently announced I'm putting $100 million into an applied AI hub. Um, I'm not pretending to reinvent AI. What I am attempting to do is, or to claim that we discovered or owned it, though I will say MIT had a fair amount to do with AI in the early days.
Mhm.
What I will say is that I think Massachusetts, as a state, we have a unique opportunity. And what we did is you ask what can a state do? I can convene. And so here I brought together our colleges and universities, our research institutions, some of our private sector companies, and created this applied AI hub, which we're building out now. Huge computing power, but getting data from across these entities and industries, and using that to develop our AI solutions. Um, as a state, as a government, I can also set an example. I recently partnered with Northeastern University, brought on board AI students to help them, and said, hey, here's a sandbox for all of our state agencies. Why don't you develop some AI solutions that will help us better deliver and more quickly deliver responses to the public or regulated entities or whatever, right? Amazing. And we've shaved off the time that it takes to get stuff done in government as a result. And you know what's cool is that in our first cohort, 12 of those students are coming back to work in state government right out of
That's great.
Northeastern, right?
Mhm.
Applying AI. And I'm excited for what this, all of what's possible here in this state. Even though it's a super challenging time, it is, right? I mean, we don't see capital being deployed as it was around the country. Inflation is still a challenge. Tariffs, we're not certain what's happening. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. But to me, there are some things in Massachusetts that are just so foundational, that are core here, and that I'm going to make sure stay in place through this time. And that's why my money's on Massachusetts.
Well, Governor, first of all, I thank you for your service, your leadership, and your vision. This has been an extraordinary conversation and truly a privilege for me to get to know you. And thank you for sharing more of your plans and your thoughts on the future of Massachusetts and what you intend on doing over the next couple of years. With that, again, thank you again for your time, and I hope that we can meet in person at the World Medical Innovation Forum.
Well, I look forward to that.
That was Governor Maura Healey. Now, unnatural signals.
What stayed with me is how quietly competitive states have become. When federal leadership pulls back, Massachusetts doesn't wait, it steps in. It funds research, it fixes transit, it invests in schools. Not because it's nice policy, but because without those things, talent leaves. The signals that we're archiving are: when national leadership weakens, the state becomes a real unit of competition. Massachusetts is acting less like a bureaucracy and more like a long-lived organization trying to stay relevant. The $400 million DRIVE initiative isn't symbolic, it's meant to fill a real R&D gap. Education and public transit aren't social extras, they're economic infrastructure. And talent attraction isn't branding anymore, it's a survival strategy. What this conversation really shows is a simple pattern though. Lower the friction, make it easier to build, give the best people fewer reasons to leave. That's the quiet strategy holding the whole system together.
Thanks for listening to Unnatural Selection. If you enjoyed the episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone shaping the future. Explore more at unnaturalselection.net and connect with us on LinkedIn and Facebook. Until next time, keep evolving.